Welcome to the class, everybody. It's lovely to see you here, and I hope that you're going to enjoy it. It's all sorts of bits and pieces. I've kind of sort of dug into the research on what's going on with people's hearts and how we can improve our heart health and maintain it as well. If we already have a sort of healthy standard of living, then maybe some of the things that come up in here might be things that you just think, well, do you know what, I'm doing so well already, but maybe I could just add that into my sort of routine or whatever. So we're just kind of having a look all around heart health, etc. And I'm going to just bear with me a second while I bring this up here, the objectives. There we go. I couldn't even change the slides there. So what we're going to be looking at specifically today is we're going to have a quick look to see how a healthy heart works. Then we're going to be having a look at some of the sort of conditions and risk factors that may affect us in later life. And we'll move on after that to what we can do to keep our heart healthy. And if this is your first time in one of my classes, you might already have had a look and seen that I do various other classes sort of about health and well-being, and they all kind of tie in together. So if there's a specific aspect of what we talk about today that interests you, by all means hop in another of my classes and we can explore perhaps things a bit more fully, because this is, if you like, an overview. So what are we going to be looking at first of all? Oops, I flipped too far there. There we go, I've gone back again. We're going to be looking at various aspects of how a healthy heart works. And I thought I knew a fair bit about this already, but as I say, one of the things I love about doing classes like this is that as I'm researching and going through sort of the facts that I want to share with people, I find out bits and pieces for myself. So this is as much a learning journey sometimes for me as it is for others that join the class. So we'll be looking at all sorts of bits and pieces that are involved in the very, very complex organ that is our heart. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the function, and the human heart works like a pump, really. That's basically what it is, and it sends blood around your body to keep you alive. It's a muscle. It's about the size of your fist, and it is situated in the middle of your chest, tilted slightly to the left. That's going to look like to the right on your screen, probably, if you can see me, but it is slightly to the left. It's not completely to the left, like lots of sort of diagrams show. I don't know if you've joined this class already, if you've been in the class already. If you have, I'll ask you not to answer this question, but if you haven't been in the class already, anybody want to take a guess at how many times a day your heart beats? You can pop it in the chat if you want to take a guess. It surprised me. I didn't think it was as many times as it is. So if you want to, I'll just give it a minute in case anybody wants to chip in. Go on, somebody have a guess. No. Well, every day your heart beats around 100,000 times. This continuously pumps about 5 litres, which is about 8 pints of blood around your body through a network of blood vessels that are called your circulatory system. And your blood, the point of your blood is that it delivers oxygen and nutrients to every part of your body to help all your organs and your muscles work properly. It also carries away unwanted carbon dioxide and waste products. So your heart is pumping it round, and it's, I suppose if you want to think about it, it's like a little train, isn't it? It's pumping it round, and your train is carrying oxygen and nutrients, dropping them off on the way round, and then it's picking up carbon dioxide and waste products to bring back to the heart again. And if you were thinking, well, okay, I think I pretty much know what my heart is like, it may just help to sort of, or if you don't really know what your heart is like, sorry, then it may just help to have a little bit more information about how it's structured. It's got a left side and it's got a right side, and they're both separated by a thin muscular wall that's called the septum. And on each side of your heart, you have an upper chamber and a lower chamber. So the upper chambers are called the left atrium and the right atrium, and the lower chambers are called the left ventricle and the right ventricle. So on the right-hand side of your heart, it receives blood that has picked up the carbon dioxide and the waste materials. It doesn't have much oxygen left in it. It's already traveled around your body. So that what happens is that the blood comes into your heart on the right side, and it then goes down to your lungs and collects a fresh supply of oxygen. Then the left side of your body pumps the reoxygenated blood around your body again. So your heart muscle is made up of 3 layers of tissue. It's the pericardium, which is the thin outer lining that protects and surrounds your heart. The myocardium is the thick muscular middle layer that contracts and relaxes to pump blood around your heart. And that's probably the bit that we all think of as our heart. And then the endocardium is the thin inner layer that makes up the lining of the 4 chambers and the valves in your heart. So you've got a really complex piece of musculature in your chest here that's working very, very busily all day long, day and night. What it also has, it has an electrical system. Now, the electrical system has a really, really important function. It tells your heart when to contract and when to relax to keep our blood pumping regularly. And the instructions to contract and relax are carried by electrical signals. And it's they all come from something that's called the sinus node, and it's your heart's natural pacemaker. And usually the sinus node will send the electrical signals at a steady pace, but it can change depending on what you're doing and on your emotions as well. And this is your heart rate. So imagine if you're, say you're running up the stairs or something like that, well, your heart will start to pump faster to allow you to do this. The other thing that might affect it as well is if you give yourself a fright. If you ever sort of, if somebody's jumped out and said boo at you, you go, oh, and your heart starts going like a train, then that's something else. Your sinus node is actually controlling that and making your heart beat faster to deal with everything that's going on as a result of that surprise. So the blood flow around your body, I've touched on this briefly already. Your heart is linked to the rest of the circulatory system with blood vessels called arteries and veins. Your arteries are the blood vessels that deliver the oxygen-rich blood from the heart to the other areas of your body. Your veins return the deoxygenated blood, that blood that has the carbon dioxide in it, and it delivers it back to your heart. And apart from your arteries and your veins, the rest of your body is connected to your circulatory system by even smaller blood vessels called capillaries, and that reaches to every single part of your body. So it's like a one-way traffic system that you've got going on. Remember, I said that as your blood leaves your heart, it's delivering oxygen and it's delivering nutrients. On the way back, it's carrying carbon dioxide and waste materials. Within your heart, to help this happen, you have heart valves, and they control the direction of the blood flows. They act like doors that open and close with every heartbeat. There are 4 of these in your heart. There's the tricuspid valve and the pulmonary valve on the right-hand side, and there's the mitral valve and the aortic valve on the left side. So like the rest of your body, your heart needs to be supplied with oxygen-rich blood to work properly too. And the coronary arteries are arteries responsible with supplying the heart with oxygenated blood. And they are spread around the outside of the heart to deliver the blood. So how do your heart and your lungs add oxygen to your blood? Well, as your blood flows through your heart and your lungs to be reoxygenated before being pumped to the rest of your body, oxygen is added in 4 main steps. And the 4 main steps are the right atrium, which is at the top of the right-hand side of your heart. It receives the low oxygen blood that's just traveled around the body. It pumps the blood down to the right ventricle. The right ventricle is the bottom of the right-hand side, and it pumps the low oxygen blood to the lungs to pick up a fresh supply of oxygen. So then the left atrium at the top of the left-hand side of the heart receives the high oxygen blood from the lungs, and it pumps it down to the left ventricle. And that pumps the blood to the rest of the body. So it's going round and round in this way, in a very organized way. And this is how a completely healthy heart works. The sinus node works well, all the ventricles work well, the valves work well, the arteries and the veins work well, and everything is just running like a well-oiled machine, if you like. However, there are lots and lots of things that can affect how well our heart works. And again, as I said, as we get older, everything within our bodies becomes slightly less efficient as we get older, and it's just one of the facts of life. But without having a healthy heart, we're putting ourselves at strain in lots of other ways as well. So what we need to do is protect our heart and look at our lifestyle and look at some of the things that we can do to make sure that we keep this heart working efficiently. And one of the things that's a big risk factor, well, it's a condition and a risk factor, is high cholesterol. And it's really simply just a fatty substance that's in your blood. And too much of it can increase your risk of heart and circulatory diseases. So that's something that we really do need to avoid. What another thing is that can really affect us is obesity. If we're carrying too many pounds on our body, then we're putting extra strain, not only on our heart, but on all our major organs. Particularly if we're carrying the weight around our middle. That means that we're far more at risk of damaging or putting strain on our organs than if we carry the extra weight sort of evenly throughout our body. It can have a really big impact on your health. The biggest one of all, the biggest risk factor of all, is definitely a lifestyle one, and it's smoking. You're almost twice as likely to have a heart attack compared to people who've never smoked if you're a regular smoker. It's one of these things that people come to me in my other job about quite a lot about smoking. And over the years, I've helped lots of people sort of stop, and often with an element of surprise at how easy it is once they get their head around the idea of it. At one point, smoking was seen as fashionable. It was something that it was kind of, only think of the Marlboro Man or something like this. It was cool to do. Peer pressure is one of the things as well that really sort of sends people into a smoking decline. And it has this reputation of being so addictive that it's almost impossible to stop. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on, because I might slightly disagree with that when I tell you about some of the ways that my clients have helped themselves stop in the past and now. So the next thing is high blood pressure. This is also known as hypertension, and knowing your blood pressure could save your life. And this is something, if you have the opportunity to do so, going along to your general practitioner if you live here in the UK, or to your doctor, to your healthcare professional if you live elsewhere in the world. Get your blood pressure checked, check what your doctor has to say about it, and do everything you can to keep it in a healthy range. Diabetes is another massive one. Type 1 diabetes is something that you're born with. It's part of who you are. and it's something that you have to live with because there is no cure for it. But there are ways of managing it and living with it, and doing so successfully. Type 2 diabetes is a different kettle of fish altogether. That is something that can be controlled. It can be looked after when we look after our lifestyle. It's something that is thought to be one of the fastest growing diseases in the world, and particularly for people of middle age. And so much of it is down to lifestyle conditions and how we actually look after our bodies or not. Another thing that's really hard for our heart is sitting in a chair and watching television all day, or just being physically inactive. Remember, our heart, just as I've said in the last slide, our heart is made up of muscle. There's 3 different types of muscle, but it's definitely a muscle. And like every other muscle in our body, it needs exercise and physical activity to help it work properly. If this is something that you find that as you're getting older, that you're moving less, that you feel less inclined to move, or if you have sort of a health issue that prevents you from moving too much, then you may find sort of my exercise ideas for as we get older to help you stay strong and healthy. You might find that class of mine really helpful to join, because it has lots of ideas of how you can get involved. It even sort of breaks down this whole idea of the word exercise. I think can sometimes be a bit off-putting, but when you come into the class and you see what exercise actually means, then it's something that is much more doable perhaps than you think it might be. So that's another of the things that is really, really important to look after as well, is just to move more, basically. So what can we do to keep our heart healthy? Well, there are 3 main things that we can do. We can change our lifestyle. I've talked about this a bit already, just saying that so many of the things, so many of the risks and the conditions that affect our heart are actually lifestyle choices. And they're the things that we choose to do, or to eat or to drink, etc. And they can really, really affect our heart condition. Exercise, again, I've mentioned that. And then finally, diet is the 3rd one. And diet, I don't necessarily mean a calorie controlled diet. Your diet is just what you eat. It's as simple as that. And we're going to have a wee look into that in a moment to see what they mean. Okay. So lifestyle things that we can control that can help us to keep our heart healthy. Well, one of the main ones is controlling cholesterol, and we can lower that, and that's very much linked into blood pressure and managing stress. So we can control our cholesterol and blood pressure and manage stress in a variety of ways, and mindfulness and meditation are often cited as ways of helping us manage stress. When we manage stress, what we do is we're actually making physical changes within our brain that send signals into our body to help us to relax. And when we relax, our heart rate drops down. And when our heart rate drops down, our blood pressure is eased. Our breathing is more comfortable as well. And the heart and the lungs are sort of intertwined in a way that can't be separated. So when we manage stress, we're helping our heart health, we're helping our breathing, and the pair of them together are really, really, really important to do for our sort of stress levels. And as I've said, mindfulness and meditation are great ways of doing this. Another way as well is through exercise and through diet. And we're going to have a look at that later on as we get to the those sections. So back to the elephant in the room. And I don't know how many of you that are here today are actually smokers, but as I said, smoking is the biggest sort of risk to your heart. And if you do smoke, then it's something that perhaps might be something that you want to consider stopping. Maybe you've tried stopping before, but you've managed to talk yourself out of it and start smoking again. Staying away from secondhand smoke is another thing that you can do. If you stop smoking or you stay away from secondhand smoke, you're going to notice benefits sooner than you think. If you smoke regularly through the day, you might find it interesting to know that in between cigarettes, within only 20 minutes of stopping smoking a cigarette, your heart rate and your blood pressure will begin to return to normal. So that's 20 minutes. You're starting to do yourself a favor. If you decide to stop full stop, and by the time you get to 2 or 3 days into it, your sense of smell, your sense of taste, they're both going to begin to improve after that length of time. And that means that perhaps you're going to start making better food choices, because if your food tastes better, you might say, why on earth have I been eating this? Because this doesn't taste as good as I thought it did. But because you've been smoking, your taste buds have been all to pot anyway. So giving yourself the chance to have a few days just to see how your taste and your smell improve will allow you to enjoy your food more. And when you enjoy your food more, it's much easier to make healthy food choices. If you find that you're finding it really easy to stop, and it gets to the year mark, a whole year, by that point, you've halved your risk of having a heart attack. Within 1 year, you have halved it, 50% reduction in the chance of having a heart attack. These are just some of the benefits to your general sort of bodily health, but when you stop as well, you're going to have loads of other benefits. Things like you're going to have fresher breath and whiter teeth. Your skin is going to thank you for it as well. Your pores won't be clogged with the chemicals and the smoke from your skin. It's gives you every opportunity to allow your skin to look younger, and you then continue to age less quickly as well. Another thing that people find when they stop smoking is that they find that they have more energy, they feel less tired, they have fewer headaches. There are over 300 different chemicals in cigarette tobacco, and most of them are pretty horrific. They're used in pesticides, they're used to put horses to sleep. There are all sorts of revolting things in cigarettes. And one of the things that I discovered when I was doing my hypnotherapy training was that apparently tobacco pickers in some of the poorest countries in the world are paid by weight for the leaves that they pick. And in order to make a living, they have to pick as fast as they can during the day. And this is maybe something that's going to be a little bit squeamish to hear. But when they have to take comfort breaks during the day, sometimes they use the tobacco leaves as toilet paper, and that then goes into the bundle because it weighs a bit more, and that goes into the packaging for into the making of cigarettes. So there's something that I found quite revolting, but it's a fact, which is maybe a little disturbing. Probably too much information as well, but there we go. So there's no wonder that, if you're getting headaches, if you're feeling congestion in your lungs, along with the 300 chemicals, there may be some other pretty revolting substances in there as well. But when you stop as well, another huge benefit is that your immune system finds it easier for you to stave off colds and flu. Your lungs are so much healthier. They're able to deal with infections or viruses as well. And it's just one of these things that, especially nowadays, especially after the last couple of years where we've had the pandemic and now we're coming into winter, especially in the UK we are. If you're joining us from down under, then you're coming into your summer. But certainly we need to really protect ourselves from as many sort of respiratory problems as we can. And again, stopping smoking can be one of the ways of doing that. And I often hear people saying to me, it's like, oh, it's too hard. I can never do that. I've tried several times. It's so addictive. I can't stop. Well, people stop smoking every day. People make the decision to stop and then just don't start again. And that is a fact. People change their minds about things all the time. And I often say to people about smoking, people, when they're little, when you're a kid, maybe you believe in Santa Claus. And there's a time when you believe in Santa Claus. And then all of a sudden, something happens and you no longer believe in Santa Claus. And you can't go back to believing in Santa Claus. Once you've decided that you don't believe in Santa Claus, that's it. Same with the tooth fairy, the Easter bunny. At some point in your life, you maybe believe in the tooth fairy coming to collect your baby teeth from under your pillow. And then at some point you realize there is no tooth fairy and you can't go back to doing that. You can't go back to thinking that. And that is just a case of changing your mind. And it's the same with smoking. I would argue that smoking is as much a habit as the chemicals that are in it. People say, but it relaxes me. What if I tell you, think about it. When you smoke, you've got very controlled breathing. You're puffing in, you're puffing out. So if you feel stressed and you put a cigarette in your mouth, you're controlling your breathing through your cigarette. And that's what you're doing. So when you control your breathing without a cigarette, you get exactly the same response to your stress, but you are not adding in all the chemicals that create even more stress for that short period of time. So as much as you're controlling your breathing, you're adding things that are making the stress levels go up as well. So by practicing breathing exercises without a cigarette in your mouth, you're doing yourself a huge favor. But going back to the point of changing your mind, I use this as an example all the time. My dad, very fit man, when he was younger, he's 87 now, so he's slowing down a bit. But when I was a teenager, I used to do track and field athletics, and he was an athletics coach. Well, he still is an athletics coach at 87 years of age. But he used to take out a running group on a Tuesday and Thursday nights with our local athletics club. And one night he was out running with them and he collapsed. And an ambulance was called and they realized there was something going on with his heart. So he got whizzed off down to a specialist hospital about 3 hours from where we lived, and he had tests, etc. And it turns out that it wasn't sort of lifestyle for him, even though up until that point he'd been smoking 40 cigarettes a day and a pipe with tobacco in it. And the cigarettes he was smoking didn't even have filter tips on them. So they were, I think they were called Players Plain. Not very good at all for him. But the heart problem that he had was just sort of a genetic thing. So luckily for him, his lifestyle hadn't started affecting his heart like that. But he stopped smoking there and then, just made the decision to stop. And he'd been smoking since he was a boy, because like I say, at that time, that's what you did. And I've often spoken to him about it and said, how hard was it for you to stop? And he said, well, the habit was hard to break because I was used to doing it. My hand would go, it wanted something to do. So he said, apart from that, it was easy because I didn't want to do this to myself anymore. So going back to this again, and I will keep saying this because smoking is so, so bad for you, that it is possible to stop smoking. And as I say, people do it every single day. If you need help, there's lots of help out there. I'm sure that your healthcare professional will help you with that. Well done, Kathleen. You're a star. Kathleen said in the chat here, it was very hard and it took many tries, but I finally kicked that habit. May the 31st, 2021, I smoked my last cigarette. And Kathleen, how do you feel as a result of having stopped? People hang on to the habit. Yeah, so much better. Thank you for sharing that. And every single person that I've come across that has stopped smoking has said, do you know what? I've gained so much more than I've lost. So well done. Hats off to you. And thank you for sharing that with the group. I'm so pleased to hear that for you. And well done for taking that step to look after your own health. So generally speaking, if we're talking about men, they add about 10 years to their life if they stop smoking sort of in their 30s. But it goes down, obviously, the older you get and the longer you smoke for, you get less sort of or fewer years to your life. But the years that you have will be much, much healthier as well. They also increase your chances of being physically active and healthier as you get older as well, because once you can breathe better, it becomes easier to move and your energy levels go up as well. So it's just a no-brainer, really. If you do need help, find out where you can get help nearby. There are all sorts of ways to help you stop. And your family, your friends, and yourself, you'll all thank yourself for doing it. You really will. Everybody will thank you for doing it. So the next one as well is reducing alcohol. I'm sounding like a right misery guts here, aren't I? You know, eat healthily, stop smoking, move more, reduce your alcohol. They don't have to be things that are negative. They can all be really, really positives, because what you do when you make these changes is, as I've just said a moment ago, you see what it's adding to your life. When you lower your cholesterol and you get rid of stress, you feel better, you feel more relaxed, you feel more in control, you feel that the tension that you once held in your body has reduced enormously. When you stop smoking, you feel better for all the reasons I've already talked about. And the other one is reducing your alcohol levels. So people say, well, what does that actually mean? I quite enjoy a glass of wine with a meal every so often, or I really enjoy socially having a drink with friends. And this obviously depends on sort of your culture, etc. In some cultures, alcohol is just not part of the culture. In many Western cultures, it's very much a part of the culture. So in the UK, if you drink alcohol, it is important to keep within the guidelines. And it used to be, I've got something here. Oh, yes. Yeah, save you lots of money as well. I mean, I have a little, in fact, you can find it online, probably with Google. You can find out a calculator that helps you work out how much money you can save if you stop smoking. Also the same now for alcohol as well. If you cut down on the booze a bit, then you can save yourself money. Think of all the things you could do that'd be so much lovelier than putting it up in smoke or just drinking it down. But here in the UK, it used to be recommended that you had 14 units of alcohol if you were a woman and 21 if you were a man. And that's recently changed, and it's now 14 for both. And so it's recommended that you have a maximum of 14 units, and you should have several alcohol-free days a week to be kind to your body. So these apply whether you drink regularly or only occasionally. And most people don't drink alcohol every day. But if you do, then, as I've said, aim to have some days off. Just make sure that you don't increase the amount you drink on the other days. So it's not like saying, oh, I'm going to have Tuesday and Thursday off alcohol, but what I would have drunk on Tuesday and alcohol, I'll just add it on to Friday and Saturday, because that's kind of defeating the purpose of the whole thing. If you do drink as much as 14 units per week, spread it out over 3 days or 4 days in the week, and have the other 3 days off drinking altogether. If you drink large amounts in one go, it can cause additional damage to your body. Alcohol is a toxin, and there's no two ways about it. So if you are going to drink at a party or something like that, then whatever you do, give yourself 48 hours afterwards without any alcohol in your system, to just allow that your body to recover, because it takes a long time for your body to process it. In terms of sort of how fast you process a unit, it's 1 hour per unit. That's for drinking and driving. So to have the alcohol itself out of your system, it's 1 hour per unit. So if you carry on drinking till 11 o'clock at night and you've been drinking heavily all evening, it's very easy to tot up those units. So you have to calculate for the next day when you're safe to drive again with no alcohol in your blood. And a unit is one measure of alcohol, and the units is based on the size of the drink and the alcohol strength, which is called ABV, or alcohol by volume. And that's the percentage of alcohol in the drink. In the UK, that's the strength that we go on. I think in the States, you go on proof, which is double alcohol by volume. So here in the UK, a single pub measure, which is 25 ml, which is just under a fluid ounce of spirits. And spirits are generally around 40% alcohol by volume. That's 80% proof. That contains 1 unit of alcohol. So one single pub measure is usually around 1 unit of alcohol. A glass of liqueur or sherry or fortified wine, such as port, that's generally around 20% alcohol by volume or 40% proof. And that's usually served up as 50 milliliters or just under 2 fluid ounces. That's also 1 unit of alcohol. If you're a beer drinker, the bad news is that half a pint which of standard strength beer or cider or whatever, 4% alcohol, that's about 300 milliliters. That's 1.1 units. So if you only drink a pint, you're already on 2.2 units of alcohol, and that's a sort of a lower strength beer. Nowadays, the strength of beer can go up to 5, 6, 7. I've even seen an 8% beer. So your units will be much higher in that as well. And if you're a wine drinker, those big goblets of wine that look so fashionable and they look really nice to drink from, they hold an awful lot of wine. And a very small glass of wine, 175 milliliters, which is about 6 fluid ounces of 13% alcohol wine. That's 2.3 units. So you don't need many of them in a week to make up your 14 units. You'll get about 6 of them in a week. So most wine bottles now will tell you how many units you've got in them, and most beers will tell you the same. So it helps you to keep track of what you're drinking. And there's the whole sort of idea that alcohol can be good for your heart. And there may be some health benefits for women over the age of 55, as long as they have no more than 5 units a week, which is 2 glasses of wine a week, 2 small glasses of wine a week. Once you get over that, it starts eating into the benefits, and very, very quickly you are going onto the other end of the scale. So it's doing you no good whatsoever. So saying, oh, I'm having a glass of red wine to protect my heart isn't really a valid excuse, unless you live very healthily in every other area of your life and you stick to under 5 units a week. Sorry to tell you that, but that's the fact. So what's next? Exercise. Can exercise help to lower your cholesterol? Blood pumping around your body by doing exercise can reduce your cholesterol. It helps your body move the bad cholesterol to your liver where it can get moved out of your system. And as I've said already, you don't have to join a gym or go on long runs or do jumping jacks till you keel over if you don't enjoy it. Just look for opportunities to move more throughout the day. And just being generally more active is good for you in other ways. It helps to improve your mood, and it helps you to make healthier food choices as well, because very often once you get more active, you think, do I really want to be eating that cream cake? Well, maybe I do want to eat it, but actually, is it going to do me any good? And it kind of makes it a waste of time for me doing other things to make myself healthy if I'm going to stuff my face with cake at the end of it. So some of the really, really simple ways you can add exercise into your day are doing things like taking stairs instead of the lift if you live in a building that has stairs. Let me have a wee look and see what's here. Is non-alcohol beer okay? Yeah, it's the alcohol that's doing you the damage. It's a bit like saying, does the caffeine in coffee harm you? Well, caffeine is a stimulant, so that a little bit of it is sort of good for your heart, but lots of it isn't. Non-alcohol beer is fine, and yeah, it does have sugar in it, some level of sugar. Some of the sugar will have gone, but it'll still have calories in it. I think I quite often drink Beck's Blue. I think that's the one that we have over here, but that is it still has more calories in it than drinking water or something. So I do I'm careful about how many I have, because it's easy to knock up the calories just by drinking that as well. Just check it out and you'll be able to see, but it is the alcohol that we're talking about that's the toxin. So non-alcoholic beer is much better for you. Okay, I hope that helps. Good question as well, actually. Another thing that I've discovered is, well, I call it ginless. It's alcohol-free gin. And some people say, what on earth is the point of drinking alcohol-free gin and paying for that? I quite like it because I find that I really don't miss the alcohol itself. I very rarely have a drink now because it just doesn't suit me. Unfortunately, now I'm sort of at the tail end of going through the menopause, and alcohol just doesn't agree with me anymore. So I like the ritual of having something to drink in an evening. And to be honest, it really doesn't bother me whether it has alcohol or not. That was my big sort of wake-up call. I suddenly realized that it wasn't the alcohol that I liked. It was the ritual of having something that felt different to what I've been drinking during the day, the water or the juice that I've been drinking during the day. So I like to get some. I treat it in exactly the same way. I put a measure of it in, I have it with tonic, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And I think it's Gordon's that I most often buy. I think it's got 12 calories or something in it, so it's neither here nor there. But my favorite is Tanqueray. It's the best ginless that there is, but it's a bit more expensive. So people, if you decide that you don't want to spend money on something that has no alcohol in it, so be it. Everybody makes their own choices, but I rather like it on a weekend because it just feels like I'm having something a bit treatish and special. So going back onto exercise again, I know I went back into cutting down alcohol, but thank you for sort of asking that, Laura, about the beer list, because that's good. So what are the ways that we can incorporate more exercise into our day? Like I was saying, taking the stairs instead of the lift. I've mentioned that one already. Parking, if you drive and you go to the supermarket or you go to the shopping centre, to the mall, park further away and walk a little bit further. Then if you've got a couple of bags with you as well, you're walking back, you're getting a bit of resistance training. So you're just moving a little bit more. Nobody's asking you to walk all the way to the town centre and do your shopping and carry all your shopping home. It's just making little changes more often. If you go for a walk, adding in a brisk walk instead of a slow walk every so often, or even just walking more briskly for a few minutes during your walk. You could maybe time yourself for 2 or 3 minutes and just up the pace and build up like that. I did say you don't have to do jumping jacks all day, but if you want to do jumping jacks, then by all means go ahead and do a few each day. And if you find that you have mobility issues or there are things that prevent you from leaving your house, something like yoga or Pilates is a great way of getting exercise into your day. Here on GetSetUp, I have seen that there's an indoor walking class. There's armchair yoga. I also do a class on beginning to walk, as sort of having a walking practice as part of your daily routine, having a look at why walking is so fantastic for you and how you can do more of it and become more geared up to doing it in a more formal way rather than just going for a stroll. So if you want to come and see about that, that's brilliant as well. So there are lots of classes on how to incorporate exercise into your life. So feel free to join any. Diet's the other brilliant thing that we can do to help ourselves keep our heart healthy. It's really easy to do to make changes to your diet. I have times where I'm really busy and I find myself just grazing throughout the day and perhaps not eating as healthily as I might do. When I talk about all the things here, when I talk about all the the aspects of looking after your diet, the really most important thing of all about changing your diet for looking after your heart is planning. Plan, plan, plan. And once you've done that, everything falls into place so much more easily. Like I say, when I'm really busy, I've been guilty myself of just snacking, but what I try to do most of the time, in fact, I don't even try to do it, I do it most of the time, is I plan meals for the week, I shop accordingly, I batch cook, and everything that I'm going to mention here next becomes so much more easy to do. The first one is getting your 5 a day. 5 a day of fruit and vegetables, and they talk about that being about 80 grams, or one portion is 80 grams, and that is about 3 ounces of fruit and vegetables. So you're looking to get 5 of them. So you can find online, there are quite often portion checkers, so that can show you what one portion looks like. Quite often it's one piece of fruit or a small handful of lots of raw or cooked vegetables. And when you're looking for your 5 a day, you can add in other things as well. Beans and pulses and legumes are other ways of finding your 5 a day as well. You're not just limited to plain fruit and vegetables. And at the risk of sounding like I'm just plugging my own courses, I do have a course, or sorry, a class on how to add more plant-based food into your diet as well, with lots of tips of how to do that. So that's something that's really easy to incorporate right the way through your day. Cutting saturated fat's a huge thing for helping your heart health. Butter, lard, and ghee are all saturated fats, and they can really clog up your arteries. Swap them for things like rapeseed oil, olive oil, and sunflower oils and spreads. Just one word of caution: if you're going to be cooking with them, something like rapeseed oil is probably your best choice because it's stable at high temperatures. Olive oil isn't, and so it's best saved for sprinkling a little bit perhaps on a salad or having it cold. And it tastes lovely as well for that, if you like olives, obviously. Sunflower oils are better forms of fats as well. If you eat meat, remove all visible fat from meat and poultry, and the skin as well. using low-fat milk and dairy products is another way of being able to sort of cut down on those saturated fats as well. Skim milk has got more sort of benefits to your health than full-fat milk in lots of ways. Another big thing that's dead easy to do is slash the salt, cut down on salt. 3/4 of the salt that we eat in our diet on average in the Western world is already in the foods that we buy. So adding more on top is very, very unnecessary a lot of the time. We've just trained ourselves to eat salt. We've trained our palate to get used to salty taste of things because so many of the foods that we buy have so much added salt in them. If you are wanting to, if you do like to sprinkle something on your food after cooking, then you can get things. I know in the UK you can get something that's called low salt, and that is actually potassium based rather than sodium based. It still has the salty flavor, but it's actually much healthier for you. And potassium rich foods help to negate the effects of salt in our diet. Don't think that just because you're eating potassium rich foods that you can slather on as much salt as you like. It doesn't work that way, but it can help to negate the effects of the salt that is already in your food. So what we looked at so far, we've looked at getting your five a day or more if you can fit them in. Swapping saturated fat for unsaturated fat, those things like olive, rapeseed and sunflower oils. Cutting down on the amount of salt that we add to our food or stopping adding it altogether by choosing a low salt alternative. Following a Mediterranean style diet has been proved time and time again to reduce your risk of heart attack. It means it's one that's rich in fruit and vegetables, in oily fish, such as sardines, and it's full of whole grain cereals as well. Rather than eating white rice and white pasta, do simple swaps to whole grain varieties of it. The Mediterranean diet also only has moderate amounts of meat and dairy in there as well. And every time you read about it, olive oil is the oil of choice in there. So that's exactly what I was saying. It's high in omega-3s, which are good for our bodies. And it's a really sort of healthy and tasty way to sort of incorporate more of the good things into our diets. So if you're interested in that, do a wee bit of research online and see what's in there. Finally, watch your portions. It's really easy to eat too much, and particularly if you're in the habit of taking your meals and putting them on your lap and watching TV while you eat. That's a really easy habit to get into, and particularly in the winter where it's maybe the coziest room in the house to sit, either in your kitchen where it's warm or in your living room with a TV on, and you can shovel food down in enormous amounts before you even realize what you've eaten. So a couple of things that you can do to watch your portion control that are tricks that I sometimes help people with as well as part of their homework in between sessions is I get them to hold their plate or their bowl in one hand and they hold it up from their lap so they can feel the weight of what they're eating. That is a very strange trick that works on your mind. It keeps you very aware of the amount of food you're eating. Another trick is to swap your fork to the different hand. You'll have a favorite hand to hold a fork in or a spoon in, swap hands and find that it slows you down because it's not such a natural thing to eat with your opposite hand. And one trick or a little tip that I like to share with people that I use myself if I notice that I'm starting to creep up in pounds a little bit is I would put my normal portion, I would split it between two plates, and then I will go to another room and eat one half of that portion because the other half's on the plate in the kitchen. When I finish that, I'll take a couple of minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and I'll think, do I want more? Sometimes I do. It depends what I've been doing in my day. So I'll go back to the kitchen and I have that portion, put that in my plate, come back through and eat that. Then give myself 5 minutes and say, do I feel like I've had enough yet? And more often than not, I'll discover that I've cut 25% out of each meal because I only wanted 75% of the portion. Had I put it all on the plate, I would have probably eaten a lot. But because I had to keep getting up and going back and getting a bit more, I find that I eat a bit less, and it is so easy just to drop those few pounds again. Because sometimes just with lifestyle, pounds fluctuate. So that's 2 or 3 tips for you there. So that's us really. We've had a look at what a healthy heart looks like. We've had a look at the things that we need to avoid, and the biggest risk factors and how we can counteract them. And we've looked at some of the ways that we can keep our heart healthy. And some of them are so easy. If we want to add a new habit to our daily life, all we have to do is tag it onto another habit. Just maybe say, well, after I've brushed my teeth in the morning, I'm going to just go and have a 15-minute walk around the block. Or after I've had my breakfast, my lunch, my dinner, I'll have that 15-minute walk. That's a really easy way to add a new habit into your lifestyle. Make it easy for yourself. Keep your shoes by the door. Keep your jacket by the door so that you're not looking for things. You don't make it difficult for yourself to find a way to do something. Just streamline all your habits so it becomes simple for you to do. So that's us, folks. I hope you've enjoyed the class. I've enjoyed seeing you here. Thank you very much, Kathleen. I've enjoyed running through this with you, and I hope you found some interesting bits and pieces in there.